Today, I'm going to give you some tips on how to facilitate a remote global conference. How do you plan something like this? How do you make sure it's an engaging experience for participants? And how do you stay sharp when it's 4 a.m., you're on the second delivery of the day, and you've been going for 20 hours? Right, first I'm going to get me from the past to give you a bit of context about what this project was.
So I've just arrived at my hotel room in Brighton. We did a full run of the show, in fact 2 runs of the show, and everything's looking pretty good. I'm here for a big remote event delivery for a big management consultancy. I'm one of the learning designers on the program, and I also facilitate these big events. So we've been planning this for the last couple of months. We've got a remote production studio in Chicago. We're going to run 2 shows. So there's one at 2 p.m. and then 2 a.m. UK time tomorrow. And we can connect up all these people across the world.
So it's 2 deliveries, 12 hours apart, and a remote distributed production team with people tuning in, participants from all over the world. First, I'm going to give you 4 tips on how to design and produce something like this. So tip number 1 is you've got to accept the constraints. There's things you simply can't do with hundreds of people on Zoom, so you've got to accept the constraints and work within them. So on this project, we used Mentimeter for audience engagement. We gave people time for individual reflection. We had some inspiring keynote speakers, and we put on a bit of a show. So I played some music, and we had quite high production values. Tip number 2, a team of specialists. So everyone needs to know their shit. Is the green screen keyed out properly? Have the guests been prepped to present? What's the CEO gonna say in her talk? This is a live, pretty high stakes production environment, so you need people on the team who are really, really good at what they do. Everyone needs to be able to plan and execute their part of the show perfectly and be ready to adapt when things change. Tip number 3, be nice and have some fun. It's really easy to forget the fun in moments of high stakes and high stress. And on these shows, we have a great time. There's a lot of laughing and joking and banter behind the scenes, but we're always nice and we're always respectful to each other. And everyone's voice is important and everyone's job is essential. And tip number 4, you've got to share every thought you have in the moment. So even in an event like this that's been planned down to the minute with all the complexity of a remote global production, you have to speak up when you see something that didn't quite work. You've got to leave your ego to one side and share every little piece of feedback and every little thought that you have in the moment you think of it, so you can make some changes. Because this is all about putting on a great show, giving the participants a useful experience. I've got a few final tips, but before I share those, let's see what state I was in at 4:30 a.m. just after the final event.
Wow, quite tired. And now the problem is I am simultaneously tired and wired. So generally I probably don't get to sleep till about 5:30. Fun though. We had them all up dancing at the end, which is pretty good for like a group of a couple of hundred management consultants from all over the world just sitting on Zoom.
I was a tired boy, but I was a happy boy. So here are my 3 final tips for how you can nail a 2 a.m. online facilitation gig. So tip 5, routine is your friend. With so much unpredictability in an event like this, I try to remove as much decision making from my day as possible. So I stay in the same hotel, I eat at the same restaurants, and I even actually on this show wear the same clothes. I've worn the same shirt for the last year doing these things. And for me, it means my brain is free to focus just completely on doing an awesome job. Tip 6, you gotta run it and run it and run it. You've got to do rehearsals. I think we maybe did 4 full run-throughs in the studio before the final show. And that means that I know the script inside out, everyone on the production team knows what they're doing, and we can iron out any final wrinkles before we go live. And then a little sub tip here is the names. There's no excuse for getting people's names wrong. And on a global program, you'll always have names that you can't pronounce. So you need to lock those down way before you get into the studio and I like to write out a phonetic spelling of the names that I'm finding tricky. Tip 7, stick to the script at 2 a.m. This is the biggest thing I've learned from these remote events. At 2 a.m, your brain just isn't working properly, and no amount of routine or caffeine or sugar will get around that. So you've got to stick to your script, and if you've written it well, you've written it in your own voice, you're well rehearsed, it will flow out of you. But the moment you start improvising, trying to make little jokes, little gags, which I've tried to do many times, things start to go wrong. And you need to get back on the script, get through the show, and then get to bed. This is tricky if you're a facilitator like me who likes to keep things loose and kind of dance in the moment. It feels weird just reading a script out. But this is about managing risk. And at 2 a.m, you're the biggest risk factor in things going wrong. So let's take a look at all our tips. There they are. I'll put them in the description too, so you can check those out, and that's it.